So imagine we're on a hike, or you're on a hike with your family and the trees rustle and you hear a lot of movement of some kind, but you can't pin it down. Is it simply a flock of birds that are getting ready to migrate? Is it an elk or a number of elk, a herd of elk? Is it potentially a mountain lion? Those things happen in Colorado, right? Unfortunately, we just don't know. Are you emotionally making a decision and then you're justifying it with I'm glad I ran, even though it happened to be, a couple rabbits or something like this, or it was a couple crows in a tree or something really innocuous to you. The same is true when it comes to investing. You have to understand what is really going on, and is it really going to affect me today? Is it going to affect my ultimate outcome? Is it going to affect my family's ability to enjoy perhaps a retirement or a college education or the new home or whatever it is we want to get accomplished? Will that sudden rustle in the grass, that sudden movement in the tree, is that going to move us from where we ultimately are going? Or can we carry on this path we're hiking on and understand that there's going to be some boulders in the way, and there's going to be some areas that may be a little bit slicker than others, and perhaps we could slip and fall a little bit, but ultimately we're going to reach our destination. Investing is much like that. If we can use that information, we can understand how to make better decisions, then we can help the client get to where they're going if we understand more. And that's what we strive to do. It takes a lot of the breeze moving the grass, it takes a lot of the fear out of what was that, and what was that in the tree. It takes a lot of fear out of that as well. In talking with clients on a regular basis, I find myself hearing words really related to our relationship. And depending on what people say, it's either emotional competence or emotional intelligence. Most times it's emotional intelligence. And what I find interesting is how people define that. I'd like to say we get a good test of both our emotional intelligence and our emotional competence when the market does what it does. In the words of Robert Burns, they prophetically wrote, "The best laid plans of mice and men can fail and do fail." And as a result of that, the question becomes understanding what that does to a relationship, potentially when we're talking about investing and people's financial goals. In the short term, it does make it very difficult. Emotional intelligence is to understand what are they thinking and how to respond to that and how to build the relationship from that. Emotional competence is to understand not only how it affects them, but how, as the advisor, one should relate to them so that we don't end up with the Mike Tyson philosophy of everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. And the reality of that is that may be true, but there's a better way to go about investing and about managing relationships. What I've found, if we know the client, if we take the time, if we invest the time in the relationship before we ever begin the investing process, we have much better outcomes. Nobody can guarantee you the market, but we can guarantee you our commitment to the client. So you may be talking to somebody who's emotionally intelligent, but maybe not necessarily competent. It's about the relationship. It's about understanding how to meet the financial goals within the parameters so that, frankly, we can sleep at night and know that we've got the right person on both sides of the table. Emotionally intelligent investors oftentimes get tripped up in that intellectually understand that the markets vary, that political whims and forces will move markets a little bit in the short term. They understand that, but they don't internalize that. And so emotional competent investors, not just emotionally intelligent, but emotionally competent investors, understand that they recognize they've got the right person in their court. They've got the right person working for them or the right group working for them. And it allows them the opportunity, frankly, to use the cliche, to sleep at night and to feel comfortable that they can look beyond today's variation, this week's variation, perhaps some volatility in the month or even in the quarter. And they know that whatever that time frame is, they're working with the right person in order to get them there. What I find is oftentimes there are frustrated people who say, "I wish we'd met sooner." That's entirely on you today as the audience. Emotionally intelligent people, oftentimes they wonder, for as an analogy, they wonder, what was that? Why did the grass move? Their mind will jump from being, it's something very, very scary. It's a tiger or it's a baboon or something. And so our primitive mind, our inner mind says, we're going to either do fight or flight. And that's the same thing that happens with investing, because money is so near and dear. Not that we necessarily have the love of money, but we do like what money has the opportunity to do for us, which is buy food and shelter and clothing and vacations and maybe a different car, children's education, those things. So that when we see the grass move a little bit, there's some volatility. Emotionally intelligent person may actually say, I understand that, but here's what I'm doing, and then I'm justifying it with logic, okay? So I'm moving with emotion, as opposed to saying, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing. It's easy for the emotionally intelligent person to just jump to a conclusion. The emotionally competent person takes that to a different level, and then they can explain to you why they're doing what they're doing, how they're feeling about it, and it's much better than trying to justify an emotional decision. Clients will ask from time to time, as we talk about emotional intelligence and emotional competence, they say, well, how can you help me bridge the gap between where I am, emotionally intelligent, and where I'd like to be, and frankly, where I'd like them to be, is emotionally competent. And oftentimes we do a lot of exercises that don't say this is emotionally intelligent, this is emotionally competent. What we do is we try to understand, what are the 5 values that are important to you in your life? So what are those things that are going to make a material difference in your world? And what do we value? So whether we value friendships, or whether we value travel, or whether we value education, there's all sorts of things people can value. Whether we value having a palatial home or a rather conservative home, those things all play into people's decisions. The more we understand about what people value, and the more they truly have acknowledged what they value, better decisions we can make. So the question becomes, how do we go from being the emotionally intelligent investor to the emotionally competent investor? In summary, it's about understanding values and what's important to not only that individual, but what all the influences are around them, number one. And number two, about trying to put into the decision-making process, what are we thinking, what are we feeling, and what are we doing? In doing so, we have the logic, we have the emotion, and we have the action in that order. What that allows us to do is prepare for the certainty of uncertainty before the uncertainty happens. So we all come to the table with this background, and this background is a set of experiences that we've experienced, we've watched other people experience, we've observed in our families, we've observed with our friends' families, our teachers, our professors, technical trainers. They all have played a tremendous role in shaping who we are. Now, part of it is nature. And for many, many people, it's varying degrees of nurture and nature. But the question is, the more knowledge we have, or if you have more knowledge, if you have a greater sum of knowledge, can you overcome those things that were perhaps negative in your life? So for example, if you had a brother or sister who chose to constantly fly off the handle on whatever it was and take it out on you, in whatever form that actually looked like. Oftentimes those people get very jittery when something is a little bit scary. So when there's volatility in the market, as a case in point, it gets scary, and so they want to run, they want to hide, they want to get away from that. And yet staying in the market may be absolutely the best decision. So the question is, how do we get from this dead center and not run, and yet somehow feel comfortable with that? And I think that's a question of really getting to know one another, getting to understand the relationship that we have as the investment advisor, to understand what it is that makes them tick and what is that background. Oftentimes I talk to clients and I say, well, why are we here today? New clients. And they say, well, I was okay with my last advisor. They did okay. And they were fine. But then I hear, so why are we here? Well, they really didn't know me. And they didn't understand that if I got that phone call when there was great market volatility, or when the market was hitting new highs, or when somebody made an announcement on TV and it caused the market to go the other way, they really didn't understand me. And so while they may have been okay at their job of making me money, they weren't okay at their job of understanding me as a person. And frankly, I've built my practice around understanding people first. If we understand that and can do a very good job of investing, well, there are no guarantees. I think that makes a much more holistic and satisfied client, a much better experience, I can tell you from my side of the table. And people are generally happier. And, we work very hard at that. No guarantees in the world, except for the fact we can assure you that we'll work on the relationship and work on accomplishing your financial goals. And so if you'd like to learn more, certainly I'd like to have the opportunity to talk to you. You can find me at fullcirclefinancialofcolorado.com, and in there's plenty of contact information, and also at the bottom of the screen here is the contact information.